Hello and welcome to our report from a mini plenary session taking place here in the European Parliament in Brussels. It has been talked about for many months now, but negotiations on a package of legislation on European economic governance are finally nearing an end, with MEPs adopting 6 proposals on strengthening economic governance. The EPP group has pushed hard for greater fiscal discipline and increased competitiveness. Attempts by the Socialists to allow for an increase in public deficits left them isolated, with MEPs rallying around the position that deficits must be kept to a minimum to prevent future generations being saddled with unmanageable debt, as EPP group spokeswoman on the economy, Wortmann-Kool, was quick to point out in plenary.
The time for easy solutions and easy decisions is now behind us. That's why the EPP is encouraging sustainable public finances and not a 5 or 6% deficit.
Any new rules must be approved by both Parliament and the Council representing the Member States. Compromises have been reached in nearly all areas, with only one outstanding issue. Member States have so far resisted pressure to make sanctions on those countries deviating from these rules semi-automatic, remaining unhappy with the idea that Member States would have to ask for a vote against sanctions proposed by the Commission, rather than having to approve them each time. A proposal strongly backed by Parliament, and that would see greater power for the Commission in this area.
Het gaat om geloofwaardige wetgeving. We don't want to see fines handed down, but if Member States do not do sufficient work to reduce their deficits, then there will have to be stringent measures taken. And the European Parliament has proposed the reverse qualified majority vote procedure to deal with that.
It is hoped an agreement will be reached by the end of June, enabling MEPs to vote on a final overall resolution in July before the summer.
Mr. President, Europe urgently needs a strong fundament for the euro. And we have been discussing this package for many months, and now there is for 98% an agreement with Council. We would like to have the vote tomorrow so that the European Parliament can express its vote in plenary here, and further negotiations with Council are needed so that we can get a final agreement before summer in order to have this strong fundament for the euro.
MEPs also voted to strengthen consumer rights in the online market especially. They set out their priorities for the future of the EU's agricultural policy and also agreed on who should take over from Jean-Claude Trichet as President of the European Central Bank in November. After 2 years of debate and negotiations between the European Parliament and the Council of Ministers, new consumer rights legislation will soon come into force, as Parliament voted in favour of a text agreed with the Council. The Parliament's draftsman or rapporteur on the Consumer Rights Directive is the EPP group's Andreas Schwab. In his report, a compromise approved across party lines in Parliament, he sought a unified set of rules, in particular for the cross-border online market. Among the rules adopted were: traders will have to disclose all costs and fees at the outset, ensuring that vendors must inform the consumer of all important details up front. A separate button users must click on websites to confirm the consumer understands that a service ordered is at his or her own expense. This is to prevent traders from making it appear that a service is free and then landing consumers with surprise bills afterwards. Consumers will now have 2 weeks to withdraw from a purchase, including from an online auction. Last April, Andreas Schwab was a special guest in our People First programme and underlined the importance of the new law.
The most important point on this legislation is trust, mutual trust. Consumer will shop much more online if they trust to the system as a whole, and SMEs will take the profit out of that in any case. So I think the most important point that we have to deal with is to improve trust in online shopping, and that's what we want to do with that directive.
Another important report dealing with the future of the Common Agricultural Policy was approved this plenary session. Its draftman, Albert Dess, worked hard for more than a year to bring this legislation to success. A year ago, when the work on the report had just started, he spoke to EPP TV about how the so-called CAP offers value for money to all Europeans.
The advantage is that 500 million Europeans get access to fresh foodstuffs, that food safety is ensured. In this sense, the agricultural policy is the cheapest policy for the consumer. The farmers need security for their investments. Only if that is ensured over a longer period are young farmers willing to invest in agriculture.
The final report approved by MEPs included Albert Dess's proposals for ensuring these principles. Last but not least, and by a large majority, MEPs approved the nomination of Mario Draghi, currently Governor of the Bank of Italy, as the new President of the European Central Bank. He will take over from Jean-Claude Trichet next November. That's all for this session, but we'll be back on the 7th of July with news from Parliament's last plenary session before the summer recess. To keep up to date in the meantime, visit our website eppgroup.eu. Thanks for watching.